Okay, I think it's time to get started. I hope you are hearing me all right. Welcome to this Simplebim webinar. Today we are going to see a product demo about the Simplebim product. Unlike to our earlier messaging, there's a slight change in the speakers today. Jiri Hietanen, who was supposed to give the presentation today, couldn't make it, and instead we have here with me Sakari Lehtinen, the other co-founder of Simplebim. I'm Jarmo Kuusinen, head of partnerships at DataCubist, and I'll be your host today. Few words about the company. The company behind Simplebim is DataCubist. We focus on solving data exchange problems in construction industry. The company was founded in 2009 by Jiri Hietanen and the other co-founder who's joining us today, Sakari Lehtinen. We are already in version 9 of Simplebim software. We currently have more than 5,000 users in 36 countries. We have 13 resellers who are operating in 24 countries. So we are pretty happy to see wide adoption of our software already. And here's again the listing of resellers. So please check your local reseller if you want to know more, if you want to get some support, purchase license, or so forth. These companies are available for you as well. You can find the contact information from our website. I think that's pretty much the introduction to the company and getting started part. Now I'm going to give floor to Sakari Lehtinen, who will discuss about Simplebim usage and showcase the product. Sakari, floor is yours.
Thank you, Jarmo. Yeah, my name is Sakari Lehtinen. I'm the other co-founder of Simplebim or DataCubist and the other main developer of Simplebim. And yeah, so my background is a structural engineer. I met my business partner back in university where we were developing or helping to develop IFC format. And then we went to another software company. We made pilot projects. We authored some BIM guidelines and requirements, and did even software or IFC certification. And we did all these things, and we noticed that we can't solve these data exchange issues just by making more requirements and so on. So we saw there's need for a tool, additional tool, a very specific kind, and that then became Simplebim. We started our company and developing the tool. And the main problem that we noticed was that the BIM models are created by multiple different sources, which all create different kind of data. There's different design disciplines, there's different model author tools, versions of those, and different companies use those tools in different ways. And that ends up to a different kind of data, and that's sort of something we can't really change. That's just how the industry works. But in order to use all this data together or use it in an efficient way, that data needs to be unified or normalized, somehow fit for the purpose. And that's what Simplebim does. It takes open BIM IFC models and it transforms the data or wrangles the data or modifies the data, whatever you want to call it, so that it fits for the different kind of purposes. I'm sure all you have different uses for BIM and BIM data, and And there's many ways Simplebim can help in that. That's the general idea. We come back to the more to the details of the features and the even use cases a little bit later, but first let me just show you the basic workflow. Great, so here I have the Simplebim already opened, and yes, so we take the basic workflow is that you import an IFC model to Simplebim. In this case, it's a simple architectural sample model, but it could be from any discipline. It could be structural model, it could be HVAC model, MEP, electrical, whatever. And sure, you can view and get to know the data and the model, just like in any viewer. If you want to know more about the basic viewing and editing, there's a lot of tutorials available in our YouTube channel and in our support site. I will show you later. And here's even some tips for the 3D can be found here in the lower right corner. So I won't go into those details right now, but let's look at the basic workflow. So you import the model and you could do different kind of things, which I will go through in a minute. But for example, you could select some objects from the model simply by drag and dropping. And maybe this is all what you want to do. It's sort of clean up the model. And then you would export it back to IFC. And that's it. You know, that could already add you some or even a lot of value. And then you would take that model back to some other BIM software and or just extract the data to Excel or data sets. And that would, all those edits you done, in this case, I just trimmed the model, but I could do a lot of other things. All those edits would be included in the IFC model. So this open workflow, you import, you do things to the model to make it better, and then you export it back to IFC. Yeah, so what else can you do? There's a lot of things you can do with Simplebim, and you can start small, or your use case could be something relatively simple, like we have customers who are site surveyors. They just basically do what I just did. They take a structural model, they choose some objects from it, export it back to IFC, maybe manage some of the data so that it works better in their site computer, and then they upload the edited IFC model to their site computer, and it's much valuable to use on the site and with the total stations or whatever they call it. Or you could be a construction company managing models from over 100 projects per year, like some of our customers are, and run these different things, transform the data in different ways on weekly basis, or even some cases in daily basis from all the different disciplines. And you know, there's simple cases, and you can take steps to go very far if that's what you need. So there's a list of things you can do. Let's go through them one by one quickly so that you can get an overview of what is possible. First of all, you can make the data consistent. I think this is the most important thing. and that's something the industry is at the moment struggling with, and that's sort of stuck with the fact that the models they get are like here in the left side. Their semantics is something most of the people can't even understand, and the data is here and there mixed up in different models. And after you do it, make it consistent with Simplebim, you can add your own property sets. You can make the semantics of the property names such that everybody can understand, not just the BIM savvy or BIM or data savvy people, but everybody. So the data is easy to understand, and it's always the same, no matter where the model comes from, which model or tool, which disciplines, in which project. It's always the same. And yeah, that's what Simplebim enables you to do. Well, as we showed in the basic workflow, you can clean up the model in different ways. You can just select objects, you can select properties or filter them out. And Simplebim compresses the models, makes the file size smaller, and there's even these sort of innovative ways to reduce the file size even further. Because even we have all this cloud computing power and all this storage and everything, but it's never a wise idea to store unnecessary data, which can cause unnecessary issues. So it's better to focus on the data you actually need, and there's very nice ways in Simplebim to manage data that way. You can merge models together. Here we have some architectural, some structural, and some HVAC models merged together. And the big idea is that you take those models together and you don't just overlay them on top of each other, but you actually merge the data so that you can create another IFC model from those federated models, which then can be again used in the downstream for different purposes. Grouping and classification, this doesn't come from the designers. Every use case has its own way to organize the data, and Simplebim has a very powerful tools to either manually on the UI or automatically with the rules organize the data in different ways. Here in the picture, there's a Finnish national classification system, but it doesn't have to even be anything that complex. It can be another national classification system from your country, but it could be something much simpler. Like the model simply classified based on the types of the, I don't know, precast walls or whatever, if you're doing tendering for precast factory. Quantities, everything in the construction is basically based on quantities, and that's sort of giving, but BIM for sure is a very powerful way to measure things from the designs. But the one issue we have is that all the model auto tools do it a little bit differently. But if you use Simplebim, we have our own calculation quantity takeoff engine, which uses the geometry. So no matter where the model comes from, there's always the same logic applied, and the calculation results are always sort of consistent and comparable. One of the most interesting things in Simplebim is how you can organize the models by defining different levels of locations to the data. So you do it with these sort of volumetric objects, and there can be different levels. It can be a building, it can be section, building story, but it can even be apartment or tucked area or even a room. And you define these locations, and then you can apply it to all the disciplines models, which then means that all of them have the same information if you want to use them together. You know, I'll show you in a minute where you have a, well, in this minute, there's in this example, there's one room from the federated model. It's all have where all of them, all the objects have this location information applied with those same prisms or location volumes, prisms, what you call them. And afterwards, you could make this kind of view. You could organize the model based on the rules and make your bill of quantities or bill of materials support your production planning or procurement or logistics or on-site management, whatever, based on that information. And all the models from all the different disciplines can have this same information, and it all can be applied to the models in a very automated and innovative way. You can enrich the models in different ways. Maybe you have something, product data in a table format. You could merge that to the objects. Or we have this tool called BIM sheet, which you could use in a way that you take data out of the model, extract it to the Excel, and then somebody else takes that Excel and adds data to it, modifies the data maybe, and then you can bring it back to Simplebim and merge that added data to the model, export it back to IFC, and then you have enriched model in your hand. You can even go even further and derive new objects and data to the model. Here's a few examples of that, like this duct penetration or electrical penetrations, you know, on the site while you're building the production, you need to go through different kind of structures, whether it's internal wall or whatever, and it's there can be thousands of these in a commercial project, and it's really hard thing to manage, hard to plan, hard to estimate, and hard to manage on the site. But with Simplebim, you could take the architectural model, you could take the cooling system or air conditioning system model, and then you class them together, not to make a design coordination, but to create these new objects. And Simplebim will create these new objects out of the class. You can see here in the picture, and that would become its own object. And it can inherit data from the wall, for example. What kind of wall is it? What's its fire rating, acoustic ratings, what its type? Because, you know, depending on what kind of it is, the work cost is different and cost different amount, and you need to use different kind of equipment. It can also inherit data from the actual duct, for example. What system is it part of, and what is size, where it is located, which section, building story, apartment, duct area, even room. And then you can do these data listings to support those plannings and monitorings and tendering and procurement and logistics for these things. Same thing, same kind of things. Here there's a structural model, and you can apply these formwork objects. There's a new object. It can inherit data, again, quantities, locations, identification, classification, and from the original objects, and then you can export it back to IFC or to Excel or to some data sets and use in your downstream. You can move and rotate objects or whole models. Maybe you are a site surveyor and you need to place the model into the site coordinate system, or maybe it's just a BIM manager who needs to coordinate the models so that when you federate them or merge them together, they are placed in the same place. Simplebim is probably the only solution which has the helmet transformation. So whenever we do something, we do it in we have very detailed discussions with the customers and find out what they actually need and go into practical details to create these tools. Okay, and you can export everything, all those operations you can do, all this data wrangling or transformation, editing, and you can export that back to IFC, but you can also export it to Excel or even to some data sets and use it in even some PI system like Power BI or whatever. And the BIM sheet is our invention, how to connect the Excel to the models, and which would be a very nice way to use Simplebim in a simple way. You just make you connect your Excel calculation to the model data, and you can even visualize your calculations. Take your cost estimate and see which objects are related to that, and make your bill of quantities or bill of materials in this simple way. Many people are still using Excel, and this is a really nice way to connecting those calculations to the model data. And there's the various different kind of things you can do to the models. IFC has some issues which can be fixed. You don't have to abandon IFC because not all the implementations are 100% error-free. There's some small issues there. Simplebim can fix them, and you can use the data. You can validate data. We're not talking about the design coordination here or clash detection as such, but the actual data. Are the data missing you need? Are the values as you expected, and so on? And of course, you can colorize and the models, and all this can always go back to the IFC and be used in the downstream. Yeah. So all this and even actually much more can be done with Simplebim. Hopefully this gave you some idea of the possibilities and get you excited to try it more. And all this can also be done automatically. So we have we call them templates, like these rule sets, which you can apply to the models. Let me show you quickly. So if I go back to my original model, there is Simplebim. Instead of manually with an human interaction, drag and dropping things, if I know what I'm doing, I can simply run this sort of, we call them templates, which is basically a rule set, and do the same thing. So automatically it found the same objects as I did manually in the beginning. And basically everything I just listed and went through, all the functionalities can be made automatically. You can even do some batch processing. We have a scripting system, which you can find more information from our support site. And there's an upcoming new solution we call Simplebim Cloud. If you're interested in that one, please contact us. It takes the automation even further and runs these rules in the cloud environment, but that's another story. Yeah, so we're almost done. Why does this matter? You know, why would you need to wrangle the data? Well, the first thing is that the environment where we are working is simply like that. The data is different when it comes from different sources. So just like in any other industry, you need to manage the data in order to get value out of it. And if you do it properly, if you make your it doesn't matter if your use case is something simple or if you're a construction company, BIM team trying to manage hundreds or tens of thousands of models per year in a very complex way. Simplebim can serve both, but the basic idea that you can take the data, make it consistent, and it makes the using the data and the models much easier. And you can serve your own organization with that data without the requirement that everybody would be BIM specialist or data specialist. If you make the data consistent, if you manage it with Simplebim, then everything in the downstream can be automated in a much simpler way. Your automation rules can be much simpler and easier to manage. Making the data consistent and transforming it this way can open up the data to much larger audience, not just because it's easier to use and easier to automate, but you can also connect it to other data sources in an automated way, which then opens up new people to adds value to a new audience, because you know the designer's data is just the beginning, and you need other data in order to get full benefits out of it. Simplebim is open, so it can be connected, integrated to basically any system that supports OpenIFC or the basic data formats. And yeah, please be in contact. We have amazing BIM experts in our teams. In our team, if you be in contact with us, we can help you, I'm sure, and take the BIM to the next level. You know, our goal is to make the industry data-driven industry, the construction data-driven industry. We hope you join us in this effort. Okay, so that's all I had. Jarmo, do you have still something else, or do we have some questions to answer?
So where do I find help? I can see that many of the participants of this call are having a trial at the moment. So please go ahead and browse our website for some BIM theory tutorial videos and support articles. Support is available through email or also from our trial@simplebim.com address. There's also trainings available and other services for deploying the Simplebim process either through us or our local resellers. So feel free to reach out to us in case you need any help with deploying Simplebim. And here's again the list of resellers who are also BIM specialists and happy to help you with these questions. Also, before checking the questions in the end, I'll just want to bring up a few case studies. If you want to know more or learn more how other customers are using Simplebim, just browse to our website simplebim.com, and from the references sections you can find these pretty interesting case studies. Now let's check the questions and answers. There is a question about Simplebim trainings. I think I mentioned about that. Yeah, a question about where do I get trainings? Well, contact us or our local reseller, and we'll support you with that question. Okay, that was the only question I have here. So I think it's time to wrap up this one. Thank you very much for joining, and thank you, Sakari, for the demo and the presentation. I hope we'll see you in our next sessions, either